What happens if you fall into a pool of liquid nitrogen? Imagine you're walking through a high-tech laboratory when suddenly, you trip. Before you can scream, you fall straight into a pool of shimmering, misty liquid. But it's not water. It's liquid nitrogen. In that instant, your body meets a substance colder than anything you've ever felt. What happens next? Do you freeze instantly, like in the movies? Or is the truth far more horrifying? Let's take a deep dive, literally and figuratively, into what happens if you fall into a pool of liquid nitrogen. Before we dive into the terrifying idea of falling into a pool of liquid nitrogen, let's take a step back and understand exactly what this mysterious substance is. You've probably seen it in movies, maybe even at a trendy restaurant, billowing cold mist like it came from the set of a sci-fi thriller. But behind its cool, otherworldly appearance is a dangerously misunderstood material. Liquid nitrogen is the cryogenic form of nitrogen gas, which normally makes up about 78% of the air we breathe. Under standard atmospheric conditions, nitrogen is odorless, colorless, tasteless, and completely harmless. You inhale it with every breath and probably never give it a second thought. But when it's cooled down to an incredible 196 degrees Celsius, or 321 degrees Fahrenheit, it becomes something else entirely. A frigid, boiling liquid capable of flash freezing nearly anything it touches. Yes, boiling. That's not a mistake. Liquid nitrogen boils at room temperature, which is why it constantly produces those ghostly clouds of vapor you see when it's poured. That vapor isn't smoke. It's condensed water from the air, made visible by the dramatic temperature difference. Because of its unique properties, liquid nitrogen has become a scientific multi-tool. It's used in cryogenics to freeze biological samples, in engineering to shrink metal parts for easy fitting, and even in medicine to remove warts or store blood and stem cells. It's found in food science too. Ever had one of those dragon's breath desserts that make you puff out fog like a dragon? That's the magic of liquid nitrogen in action. But don't let the theatrics fool you. This isn't a toy. Despite being non-toxic and non-flammable, liquid nitrogen is anything but safe. Its extreme cold is deceptively dangerous. One of the most overlooked facts is its explosive potential, not in the traditional sense, but in how it expands. When liquid nitrogen warms up and returns to its gaseous state, it expands nearly 700 times in volume. To put that in perspective, 1 liter of liquid nitrogen becomes 700 liters of nitrogen gas. In a confined space, this rapid expansion can displace oxygen and create a suffocation hazard in seconds. There are tragic real-world cases of people dying simply because nitrogen gas filled a room, pushing out breathable air without warning. And then there's the contact hazard. Liquid nitrogen doesn't burn your skin in the traditional sense. Instead, it freezes it, hard and fast. Brief exposure, such as a quick splash, might only result in minor frostbite thanks to a temporary insulating vapor layer created by the temperature difference. We'll talk more about that in part 2. But sustained contact? That's where the real nightmare begins. Your tissues can freeze solid, cells can rupture, and entire limbs may need to be amputated. Still, it's not just about human interaction. Mishandling liquid nitrogen can shatter metal, crack glass, and even cause sealed containers to explode. If someone were to pour liquid nitrogen into a sealed thermos and close the lid, the pressure from expanding gas could cause it to burst like a grenade. That's why labs working with this substance have strict safety protocols, including protective gear, ventilation systems, and special containers called Dewar flasks designed to handle cryogenic temperatures. And yet, despite its volatility, liquid nitrogen remains strangely seductive, precisely because it looks so surreal. The contrast between its beautiful fog and its deadly potential creates a false sense of comfort. It's easy to forget that what you're watching isn't just a fancy science trick, but a material that could kill you in seconds under the wrong conditions. So to recap, nitrogen in the air is your friend. Liquid nitrogen? Not so much. It's cold enough to freeze steel, expands fast enough to suffocate a room, and hides its danger behind a cloud of vapor that looks almost magical. It's a substance of extremes, unbelievably useful in the right hands and unimaginably lethal in the wrong ones. And now that we understand the science and the risks behind liquid nitrogen, we're ready to answer the big question. What happens if your entire body falls into a pool of this stuff? Let's move on to the moment of impact. The first second that could change everything. Let's imagine the unthinkable. You fall into a pool of liquid nitrogen. What happens in the very first second? Surprisingly, your skin might not freeze instantly. In fact, you might not feel anything at all. At least, not right away. That's because of a bizarre physical phenomenon known as the Leidenfrost effect. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel, but it's a real and well-documented behavior of super cold liquids. Here's how it works. When an extremely cold liquid, like liquid nitrogen, comes into contact with a surface that's vastly hotter, like your 98.6 degrees of human skin, it doesn't instantly freeze the surface. Instead, the liquid starts to boil violently upon contact, creating a thin layer of nitrogen gas between itself and your body. That vapor layer acts like an invisible thermal cushion, momentarily insulating your skin from the full force of the cold. In scientific terms, the surface is so hot relative to the boiling point of the liquid that the liquid doesn't immediately wet the surface. It hovers and skitters, suspended by its own boiling vapor. It's why people can dip a hand quickly into liquid nitrogen and pull it back out unscathed. But only for a split second. This stunt is sometimes performed in science demonstrations, but it's extremely risky and relies on perfect timing. Stay in even a half second too long, and the consequences turn catastrophic. Now imagine your entire body plunging into a pool of liquid nitrogen. The Leidenfrost effect may still occur, for a fraction of a moment. You might even feel an odd tingling sensation, or nothing at all, as that insulating gas briefly holds off the inevitable. But the vapor barrier isn't designed to handle full immersion or prolonged exposure. It fails almost immediately, collapsing under the pressure of contact on all sides. And when it fails, the real horror begins. Liquid nitrogen, now in direct contact with your skin, starts to steal heat from your body at an astonishing rate. It's not just cold, it's a predator devouring warmth. Your skin begins to freeze solid within seconds. Ice crystals start forming inside your cells, expanding and rupturing them from the inside out like microscopic grenades. This is known as cryogenic freezing, and it's far more violent than anything you've experienced with ordinary frostbite. You don't just freeze on the surface, you freeze through. Your blood vessels become brittle, muscle tissue hardens, your nervous system is overwhelmed. If you could still feel pain, it would be unbearable. But very quickly, nerve endings themselves begin to shut down, leaving behind numbness, paralysis, and shock. Meanwhile, the liquid nitrogen is boiling furiously around your body, releasing dense clouds of vapor as it rapidly absorbs your body heat. You are, quite literally, being cooked by cold. The nitrogen turns into gas, expanding dramatically and displacing the air around you. Within seconds, oxygen is gone, replaced by an invisible cloud of suffocating vapor. If you're still conscious, each breath becomes a desperate gasp for air that isn't there. Unlike drowning in water, where panic, resistance, and oxygen deprivation take time, falling into liquid nitrogen is silent, instantaneous devastation. The body doesn't fight for long. It shuts down. And even if, by some miracle, you were pulled out within seconds, the damage would already be catastrophic. Flesh frozen solid, internal tissues ruptured, organs shocked into failure. Your chances of survival? Near zero. Your chances of keeping all your limbs? Even lower. It's easy to think of freezing as a slow process, something that happens gradually in a snowstorm or if you're stranded on a mountain. But liquid nitrogen is in a different league. This isn't winter. This is a weaponized version of cold. So intense, it can shatter steel, explode plastic, and disintegrate life in seconds. That brief vapor cushion might save a fingertip from a splash. But in a full-body immersion, the Leidenfrost effect is nothing more than a blink. right before the cold comes crashing in. So now you know what happens in the first second of falling into liquid nitrogen. You're not just fighting the cold, you're up against physics itself: heat transfer, gas expansion, cellular destruction, and oxygen displacement. It's a race your body simply can't win. But what happens next? As the cold penetrates deeper, what becomes of your muscles, your heart, your brain? How long before your body shuts down completely? And is there any chance of rescue or recovery? Now that we've passed the surface layer, literally, it's time to go deeper. The moment the vapor shield collapses and the liquid nitrogen begins its invasion, your body is no longer yours. Every system, every cell, every organ is at the mercy of something more destructive than fire. And what happens next is not just chilling, it's physically catastrophic. The first few seconds are deceptively quiet. On the outside, your skin quickly loses its color, turning pale, waxy bluish, or even purple. It might look almost peaceful, like a statue carved from ice. But inside, chaos has begun. The water inside your skin cells starts to freeze solid. As it turns into ice, it expands. Ice, after all, takes up more space than liquid. This expansion rips apart cell membranes like overinflated balloons. The very structure of your skin is fracturing on a microscopic level. Your nerve endings, responsible for feeling pain, are among the first to go. Ironically, this could mean you stop feeling pain almost as quickly as it starts. That doesn't mean you're lucky. It just means your body is shutting down faster than your brain can scream. Numbness takes over, not because your body is merciful, but because it's failing. By the 10-20 second mark, the cold has drilled far beyond the surface. Your muscles stiffen, not in tension, but in total paralysis. They don't cramp, they freeze. Your arms and legs become as rigid as steel beams. Every motion becomes impossible. The ice now forming within your muscles and connective tissue continues its rampage, tearing fibers apart as it spreads. You are no longer just cold. You are being shattered from the inside. Your blood, thick and slow, struggles to move. Circulation grinds to a halt. Blood vessels, especially the tiny capillaries near your skin, can rupture under the pressure of expanding ice. Imagine a network of garden hoses that suddenly burst from within. That's your vascular system right now. As blood flow diminishes, oxygen stops reaching your brain. If you're still conscious, which is doubtful, your vision darkens. A tunnel begins to form around your sense of reality. Hypoxia and hypothermia. Gang up on your neurons. Your thoughts become foggy, slower, and then disappear into static. Your organs, heart, lungs, liver, don't have much longer. The heart, desperate to keep you alive, begins beating erratically. It's not designed to pump syrupy, semi-frozen blood. The lungs, meanwhile, are drawing in air filled with cold, oxygen-deprived nitrogen vapor. There's nothing to breathe. Even if your lungs move, they're not getting oxygen. They're filling with frost. By 30 seconds to 1 minute, the idea of survival becomes almost laughable. You are, effectively, frozen alive. And this isn't science fiction, it's science fact. Tissues at cryogenic temperatures are not simply slowed down, they are destroyed. Ice crystals continue to rupture cells. Nerve signals stop firing. The brain, now starved of heat and oxygen, enters a terminal state. You may lose consciousness, or already have. And even if, by some wild twist of fate, you are pulled from the pool before the full minute is up, your body is in ruins. The outside might look eerily intact, but inside, it's a war zone. Internal bleeding from burst vessels, neurological failure from frozen nerves, organ shutdown from cryogenic trauma. There's no easy fix, no defrosting, no miracle warming blanket. This isn't hypothermia, a slow decline in body temperature that can be reversed. This is cryogenic destruction, a total breakdown at the molecular level. Bones don't bend, they shatter. Muscles don't twitch, they break apart. Cells don't die cleanly, they explode. Doctors can treat frostbite, even severe cases. They can treat hypothermia, But once tissues have been frozen through and through at liquid nitrogen temperatures, there's no turning back. The damage is irreversible, and death isn't from one single system shutting down, it's from every system collapsing at once. The truth is stark. If you're fully immersed for more than 20-30 seconds, your body becomes less like a living organism and more like a solid object, frozen meat, devoid of circulation, nerve activity, or thought. It's a terrifying form of total body destruction. So, what does all of this mean? It means that even the briefest immersion in liquid nitrogen isn't a freak accident, it's a death sentence. A sentence carried out not with fire or trauma, but with silence, stillness, and sub-zero annihilation. But before we conclude that survival is hopeless, let's look at the edge cases. Has anyone ever come close to such an incident and lived to tell the tale? What about those science fiction stories where people are frozen and revived? At this point, you might be wondering, has anyone ever actually fallen into liquid nitrogen and survived? It's a fair question, and like many chilling scientific scenarios, it's one that straddles the line between terrifying reality and Hollywood imagination. Let's start with the real world. Despite how dramatic this scenario sounds, full-body immersion in liquid nitrogen is extremely rare. Not because it's not dangerous, but because liquid nitrogen is usually stored under tight regulations and handled only by trained professionals in secure environments. In most labs, factories, or medical facilities, there are strict safety measures, protective gear, and handling protocols that make such an accident almost impossible. Almost. Still, there have been serious and fatal accidents involving localized exposure to liquid nitrogen. Fingers, hands, and limbs have been submerged by mistake or splashed during transfers. In nearly all cases, the result is catastrophic: severe frostbite, tissue necrosis, and the need for amputation. It only takes seconds of exposure for the cold to destroy flesh. Perhaps one of the most famous modern incidents occurred in 2012 in the UK, when a young woman at a bar drank a trendy cocktail containing liquid nitrogen. The drink had been improperly prepared, and she consumed it before the nitrogen had fully evaporated. Within minutes, she began to suffer excruciating abdominal pain. Emergency surgery revealed that the freezing liquid had burned through her stomach lining, causing massive internal ruptures. Doctors had no choice but to remove her entire stomach to save her life. She survived, but her digestive system was permanently altered. These cases, while terrifying, are only brushes with localized contact. As for a full-body immersion, there are no confirmed survivors, and there's a good reason for that. The science, as we've seen, is not on our side. But that hasn't stopped our imaginations. In popular fiction, especially sci-fi and superhero films, cryogenic freezing is practically its own genre. Characters are frozen in seconds, placed in suspended animation, then thawed and brought back to life. Good as new. Think of Captain America, Han Solo, or the dozens of cryo-sleep pods in space travel epics. In some stories, people are frozen as punishment or preservation. In others, it's a medical miracle that halts aging or saves a dying hero until a future cure is found. It's great storytelling, but scientifically, it's deeply flawed. In real-life cryonics, the field of preserving the body after death in hopes of future revival, the biggest problem isn't the freezing, it's the ice. More specifically, the ice crystals that form during the freezing process. These crystals puncture and destroy cells, rendering revival nearly impossible with our current technology. Scientists have tried replacing water in the body with cryoprotectants, anti-freeze-like chemicals, to reduce ice formation. But even then, the damage is significant. To date, no human being has ever been successfully frozen and revived. Not even close. Could a specially designed suit protect you if you fell into liquid nitrogen? In theory, yes. A fully sealed, heavily insulated cryosuit might buy you a few seconds, just long enough to be pulled out. But even the best protective gear on Earth would struggle to shield you from 300 deg for more than a moment. The problem isn't just insulation, it's the thermal shock. The difference in temperature is so extreme that even metals can fracture. Imagine what it would do to you, even with a suit. What about immediate rescue? Let's say you fall in and someone pulls you out within a second. Would you survive? Maybe, but odds are high you'd still suffer severe tissue damage, deep frostbite, nerve destruction, possibly the loss of limbs. Skin might peel away, blood vessels might collapse, and your muscles could seize from internal freezing. You might live, but the trauma, both physical and psychological, would be life-altering. So, let's recap. Has anyone ever survived a full-body fall into liquid nitrogen? No. Can people survive brief contact or small splashes? Yes, but often with permanent damage. Can we freeze and revive humans, like in the movies? Not with current science. Could special gear or emergency rescue save you? Only partially, and only with luck and timing. The truth is sobering. Liquid nitrogen isn't a sci-fi wonder fluid. It's a dangerous, cryogenic agent with incredible destructive power. While it may be fun to watch fog roll off a dessert or see a flower shatter after being dipped, the risks of mishandling it are immense and all too real. As humans, we're naturally fascinated by the idea of freezing time, cheating death, or surviving the impossible. But when it comes to liquid nitrogen, survival isn't a heroic tale. It's a matter of milliseconds, muscle failure, and molecular collapse. Still wondering what could be done to prevent such a horrific scenario, or whether the presence of liquid nitrogen in public places poses a risk? In our final segment, let's explore the real-world risks, misuses, and safety precautions that might save lives before disaster ever strikes. The idea of falling into a pool of liquid nitrogen may sound like something out of a horror film or a nightmare-inducing science fiction story. And yes, full-body immersion accidents are exceptionally rare. But while the cinematic scenario may be improbable, the dangers surrounding liquid nitrogen are very real, very present, and, most importantly, often underestimated. In scientific and industrial settings, liquid nitrogen is a tool of incredible power and precision. It's used to preserve cells for fertility treatments, to flash freeze blood samples, to cool supercomputers, and even to shrink metal parts for engineering applications. But because it is so dangerously cold, 321 degrees Fahrenheit, handling it comes with stringent safety regulations. People working in labs, cryogenic storage facilities, or aerospace industries are required to wear face shields, cryo gloves, lab coats, and use insulated containers specifically designed to handle such extreme cold. Ventilation systems are built to disperse evaporated nitrogen gas to prevent asphyxiation. Training is mandatory, emergency protocols are in place, and for good reason. A spill can instantly cause skin to freeze, resulting in second- or third-degree cryogenic burns. A small leak in a poorly ventilated room can quietly displace oxygen in the air, creating an invisible suffocation hazard. If someone collapsed from hypoxia, it might be too late before anyone even realized why. A sealed container filled with evaporating nitrogen can turn into a bomb, bursting under pressure with explosive force. Now, while that's all within the controlled world of science and industry, liquid nitrogen is no longer confined to labs. In recent years, it has made its way into restaurants, cocktail bars, and even backyard science parties. You've probably seen the viral videos, servers pouring liquid nitrogen into dishes for a dramatic cloud effect, or thrill seekers dipping roses into nitrogen and shattering them on the table. It looks cool, it feels magical, it photographs well. But here's the problem. The general public isn't always equipped with the knowledge, or caution, that professionals have. There have been several disturbing incidents where liquid nitrogen, used in trendy culinary presentations, ended in tragedy. One example made international headlines. A teenager consumed a dessert still containing active nitrogen vapor and suffered a perforated stomach, requiring emergency surgery. In another case, a man attempting a party stunt poured liquid nitrogen into a sealed bottle, which exploded violently and sent him to the ER. The fog effect that makes liquid nitrogen so visually appealing is simply water vapor condensing in cold air. It's harmless in appearance, but the substance producing it isn't. That same mist can cover up the presence of nitrogen-rich air, which lacks oxygen. In confined spaces, this can quietly turn a room into a death trap. And yet, the science behind liquid nitrogen remains undeniably awe-inspiring. When used correctly, it's a life-saving marvel. It enables organ transplants by preserving tissues. It helps researchers store DNA and stem cells. It's been used to remove tumors through cryosurgery. In space exploration, liquid nitrogen helps simulate the freezing void of outer space for testing equipment and shielding astronauts. But as with many powerful tools, the difference between a miracle and a massacre is education. Handling liquid nitrogen safely requires more than gloves and goggles. It demands respect for the science behind it. Just because it creates a theatrical fog doesn't mean it's something you should casually handle at home or drink for a party trick. We live in a world increasingly fascinated by spectacle. Visual drama captures attention, from smoky cocktails to ice-cold special effects. But the real danger lies in how we often normalize things we don't fully understand. That's where the greatest risks hide, not in the science itself, but in the way it's misused. So, what can we take away from all this? First, liquid nitrogen isn't evil. It's an amazing scientific tool that has saved lives, opened up new fields of research, and continues to power innovations in technology, health, and space. But it's not something to play with. It's not a party prop. It's not a magic trick. It's science, serious, beautiful, and dangerous all at once. Second, education matters. Whether you're a professional working in a cryogenics lab or a curious customer at a fancy cocktail bar, understanding what liquid nitrogen is and what it isn't can make the difference between wonder and horror. Lastly, we should never confuse spectacle with safety. Just because something looks cool doesn't mean it can't kill you. So, now that you know the bone-shattering truth, what would you do if faced with a shimmering pool of liquid nitrogen? Dive in for curiosity, or run the other way? Let us know what surprised you the most in the comments. And if you found this video fascinating, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more mind-bending what-if explorations. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there. Some substances are just too cold to play with.